Hi, I just wanted to take the time to reflect on my experiences with the CAA assignment and go over some different things I've learned as I went through the process. By explaining this, I'll go through both the research process, the process of creating an argument and annotating, and then how I actually wrote the paper. As for the research process, I learned that this is much more different from writing a regular paper for another class. Um, you actually had to find good sources that were credible. And I found this definitely to be harder because you have to be more picky with what sources you wanted to use. I actually had some experience publishing a research paper and actually finding scholarly sources to defend my arguments. So I definitely found this to be one of the easier parts of the whole process because I have had some experience with it. But when I was creating my argument, I think this was one of the hardest parts of the whole process. I realized that the thesis needed to be defendable but also unique, and this process was really hard because there are already so many topics that have already been covered, and we kind of come into this process with very limited knowledge on what we are trying to write about. And I learned that it is, for me at least, it's definitely more effective to find your sources beforehand and annotate them and then figure out your argument. Because I think I did it more vice versa and try to create my argument first and then find my sources, which didn't really make sense for me and definitely made it harder to actually start writing the paper. Um, when annotating the paper, I definitely realized, and which I knew as well, that scholarly sources are much harder to read. So annotating heavily was definitely more important. And I often found times where I was annotating and didn't know specific things, a lot of biology terms, and I went ahead and did more background information, which I felt was which was really important for actually understanding the sources and understanding what they were trying to say about a specific topic. Um, and I also found it important to ask critical questions when annotating the sources, just because those critical questions can lead you to what your argument's going to end up being. I think some of the things I did well throughout this process was finding a diverse group of credible sources. Um, I think I annotated efficiently, and that helped me better understand the documents and ended up helping me understand my own arguments. And I also think I did really well with creating an argument that's actually relevant. Since I wrote about the COVID-19 pandemic, I felt myself almost writing with my own voice, which I thought really benefited the paper and also added like a primary source, which is just myself going through this whole thing. And I also think I did well integrating my sources to defend my thesis. Um, Things I thought I really struggled with was actually creating my argument. I definitely went through multiple different arguments and threw some away. This whole process definitely took a while, but like I said before, I think it would have shortened the time of creating an argument if I just read the sources first and then decided to create an argument. I think I also struggled with organizing my paper. As through the peer revision process, I definitely had an issue with chunking some of my sources, and I had a lot of very long paragraphs, which made it very hard to read. I really enjoyed doing the research, and I often found myself going to other sources and reading more about stuff I was interested in, specifically because this is just a topic I'm interested in. And I thought talking about my experiences with the pandemic was a good time to reflect. I found it frustrating because I was obviously, like I said, changing my argument a lot, and this made my paper feel a bit fragmented, and um, it felt like I was almost going behind with what I wanted to do. Um, if I had to do this process again, I definitely start by finding good sources that are basing my argument off of what I was annotating. I would also create a more in-depth outline in the beginning of the process so that my paper is more organized. Because I think one of the bigger issues of my paper was organization and having it be easy to read and flow well. As for applying the things I've learned through this process, I could see myself using a lot of things I learned through the process when I'm writing, obviously, other papers for other classes. But aside from something like that, I also think this assignment has helped me express myself better and improve my methods of communication. And this research paper has also served as a good reflection piece for me and has actually made it easier for me to go through this pandemic and relieve some stress. Reading a lot of the NAMI blogs actually helped me realize that everyone is kind of going through the same difficulties, and that since we're all going through it, we'll all get through it as well. Thank you, Professor Corey, for such a wonderful semester, and I hope you stay safe. Take care.